CSA New Tech Podcast.
How are you doing today?
I'm good, Gavin. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. We'll start off with a pretty simple question. What's your favorite color?
You know, you say this is simple, but I think it's difficult because your favorite color requires a different context to consider. So, my favorite color generally is purple,
All
but
right.
I'm not generally going to wear purple like on my clothing. I would more likely wear burgundy or like forest green. Like those are my go-to colors.
Okay.
But when it comes to like decorations for the house or paint colors, I totally go purple.
Is there a certain shade?
Ooh, there's so many good shades of purple. I mean, I definitely like lilac and lavender.
Yeah.
And then like that deep royal purple.
Yeah.
That's a really pretty
That
purple
one's
too.
nice.
Mhm.
I like seeing that one on lights. That one's really cool.
Definitely.
What is your favorite food?
Again, I think it depends on the context. Although, you know what? I could say right now, I have been making my own homemade tomato soup
Yeah.
and sourdough grilled cheese with some pepper jack cheese in the middle.
Okay.
With cheddar cheese. That is like the perfect meal right now for me. I have really been enjoying making tomato soup, and it's been fun. It's a lot easier than I thought too, but it's just so good. I can
Right.
eat it almost every day.
Yeah. Do you peel the tomatoes?
Oh goodness, no.
No?
So I guess I don't go that far with homemade.
Yeah.
I just buy canned, already peeled tomatoes.
Okay.
They're called San Marzano
Yeah. I've
potatoes,
heard
so
of them.
it's like a specific style of how you prepare them and then can them.
Okay.
So I just use those, and then I've got this really fancy immersion blender
Yeah.
that is like the greatest tool ever
Yeah.
for making soups.
What all do you add to the soup?
Let's see. It starts out with onion and carrots and garlic. And then you got some tomato paste in there, and then you give a little bit of flour to thicken it up. And then it's the San Marzano tomatoes with veggie broth, or you could do chicken broth. And then there's a bay leaf. And then the ingredient you cannot forget, because it completely changes the flavor of
Yeah.
the tomato soup, is thyme.
Yeah. That'll do it. That'll do it.
Delicious.
A lot of people add cream to their tomato soup. What do you think about that?
Well, that makes sense. I'm already pushing it with the grilled cheese because I am actually allergic to dairy. So I'm trying to dial back how much dairy I'm putting in there, but I honestly, the way that I make it without the cream, I think it still tastes excellent.
Yeah, and it sounds like a real homemade tomato soup, not just the canned stuff.
Definitely. It's so much better than Campbell's.
All right. My next question, what do you think about us not wearing masks anymore at school?
Well, I know a lot of people were getting pretty tired of wearing the masks, and I know some people don't agree with it. The district, I think, did a really good job of explaining their reasoning. It turns out that the school transmission rate was extremely low, which is why they dialed back the contact tracing requirement a few weeks ago. So I think, it makes sense based off of the data and how many people feel so differently about it. I think me personally, I'm still wearing my mask. I'm worried that the pandemic is not over and that we are at risk of having another variant that may be mutated even further and could cause some problems. So I'm personally going to keep wearing my mask for a while.
And I don't blame you. In my last podcast, one of the things that we talked about is COVID's just not over yet. It's still going on, and a lot of people aren't taking that seriously.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. We have to consider that while some of us may be safe or maybe not as at risk, we have to consider the rest of society and the people that are more at risk.
So one thing that really affects people getting COVID is the vaccine. What's your opinion on that?
I know vaccines are really controversial. Unfortunately, a lot of it is based off of science that has been disproven. I know some people are really nervous about the COVID vaccine specifically because it feels like new science, even though they've been working on the mRNA vaccine for, I want to say it's been 20, 30 years. I think
so.
They've been developing it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I get having anxiety about needles in general. I get having anxiety about new technology. I am personally fully vaxxed and boosted. So I know it's a personal choice, but I would encourage people to dig into the science and be wary of, misinformation.
Okay. Do you think that there will ever be a point that we'll have to require the vaccine for school?
Well, I mean, the history of education has required vaccines since we've had vaccines developed,
Yeah.
right? When I was a kid, you had to show proof of certain vaccines to start kindergarten.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even you guys, your generation had to show proof of vaccination when you started kindergarten. So, whether or not the COVID-19 vaccine is added to that list of required vaccines is questionable. I know a lot of people are trying to equate it to the flu vaccine, where not everybody gets the flu vaccine, but I think it's important for us to remember that COVID-19 is not like the flu, and we're still learning quite a bit about its after effects, particularly to the cardiovascular system.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I know enough to speculate, but I do know we've required certain vaccines before, so I guess it just depends on the consensus of the scientific community and how society makes their way through the rest of this pandemic.
All right. That was definitely a great answer. Probably one of the best ones I've heard. We're going to go a little bit off topic now. What do you think of the current freshman group?
Well, this year is the first year at CSA that I have not taught freshmen at all. Which has thrown me a little bit because that means there are 100 students in this building that I don't know personally by now, right? It's March, we're almost to spring break, and by now I have solid relationships with freshmen, so this year is a little weird for me.
Yeah.
But I've been trying to make an effort to get to know their names at least, and I've got the freshmen in my advisory and the freshmen in-house Hercules, even though some of them are still surprised that I remember their name. So I'm working on it, and I'm trying to get to know them. I think it's funny every year, being a freshman teacher for the past 5 years, every year we talk about how this freshman class, oh my goodness, they are so wild, they're so energetic, they're so squirrely. But it's every year, right? And it gets to the point where you have to realize it's just freshmen. Ninth grade year is a transitional year.
Yeah.
You're moving from the chaos of middle school, the chaos of adolescence and puberty. You are moving from big man on campus in 8th grade to little man on campus in 9th grade. So it's just a tough transitional period for teenagers. So we get it figured out. We settle down. We kind of see some changes and differences your sophomore year, and then by junior, senior year, you're delightful. So it's just about growth and development and recognizing the person before the behavior is what's really important.
Yeah. There have obviously been a few incidents that we've had this year that have been pretty interesting to listen to. Do you think that behavior will continue in this freshman class?
I do not know to which you refer. I am a little out of the loop in terms of any of the major issues with what's going on with people. And I think it's also important that we don't necessarily single anybody out. Because like I said, behavior does not define a person. So if we've had issues with certain specific repeated behaviors from freshmen at CSA, we just have to recognize that, like I said, they're learning, they're changing, they're developing, they're growing. So it is on the rest of CSA to welcome them with loving, open arms, and to teach them how to become a part of the CSA family.
All right. There have obviously been a few students that have been reconsidering CSA, and I've already heard from a few people that they're not really liking it as much. Do you have any advice for some of those people that are considering leaving us?
Yeah, this is something that we expect every year, right? We know that education is not a monolith, right? Not everybody learns in the exact same way at the exact same pace. So while we will tout that PBL and the CSA way is the best way, we also have to recognize that sometimes once you've tried it out and you see that it's not a fit, it's okay for you to try something else. But for those of you considering leaving the CSA pathway, I would ask you to not necessarily consider your immediate feelings, but to kind of sit on it and ask yourself, was it this year? Was it an anomaly? Was it something specific that happened? Was it the classes? Because next year is a new year. It's new people, it's new classes, it's new facilities. It's a new opportunity to change the way things are, and also consider that CSA is a small school. So with that comes a little bit more spotlight on who you are, but it also provides you an opportunity to take ownership of that spotlight and to do great things, like our Gavin Hopkins right here doing this amazing podcast for CSA.
Thank you. So obviously I will go ahead and speak my part on this. I have spoken with a few of you on what CSA is really like, what CSA turns into after your freshman year. And for those of you that I haven't spoken to, I'd just like to let you know that, it really does improve. I would say my freshman year was pretty gruesome. It was up there on the top worst. But after pushing through all of it, I can really say that it was worth it and I enjoyed staying. So into our next topic.
And we're really glad to hear that too, Gavin. We're happy that you stayed because you're doing great things and you're showing how CSA opens the doors for you to explore the opportunities and possibilities that we don't even know are things that we need, right? Because you guys are the ones that are driving this ship, and we want you guys to tell us where to go and tell us what's important and tell us what we should be doing, because you are the creatives. You are the ones that we're here for. So you having that voice and having that choice is what PBL is all about.
Yeah. All right. Going into our next topic, how ready do you feel to teach the incoming freshman class?
Well, I think it'll definitely be a transition back to freshmen if that is my teaching assignment next year, because teaching freshmen versus teaching juniors is definitely different. And I have absolutely loved my time with this year's juniors. We've had a blast. We've really had a chance to strengthen our relationships, and we've had a chance to see each other in new ways, and that's been amazing. But I also love making new relationships with freshmen, and I love knowing everybody in the building, because that just means that we know each other and we're comfortable with each other, and everyone has someone in the building that knows their name, which I think is very important. So I think it'll be another change. It'll be a shock to the system, I think, trying to adjust my approaches back to freshmen, because it's different. But I'm always ready to take on a new challenge, and I'm always ready to teach a new incoming group of kiddos how amazing CSA is.
All right. While we're on the topic of PBL learning, whenever you were growing up, did you ever have any specific projects that reminded you of CSA?
Goodness, I had nothing like this when I was a kid. I was straight up traditional, straight through. It was, teach the textbook, read the textbook, listen to a lecture, take notes. do the assignment, take the test, move on to the next unit. It was strictly traditional. And I have to say, there was one teacher, I remember, my sophomore world history teacher, that really tried to change that dynamic, and it was such a shock to the system that I really balked at first, because I had figured out how to play the game. I was a really good traditional style student, and his push to change things and to make me kind of be the driver of my own learning was terrifying. And I can see that I probably would have been terrified to be in a PBL school, but the more that I am at CSA and the longer that I teach here, the more I just am absolutely positive this is the way to learn.
Yeah.
So I wish I had something like this when I was a kid, that I could have really seen what else I was capable of.
So a lot of people say that the way that we do school right now, with the whole grade system especially, just isn't a way that we should be teaching the children of today, the teachers of tomorrow. You say that PBL is a great way of learning. Do you think that PBL will eventually be the only way of learning?
No, because if you think back to what I said earlier, people learn in different ways, and while I think PBL is one of the best ways to learn, I mean that's me personally, and there are other people that thrive in other educational environments. I would say that I would love to see PBL offered in every district in the United States, because that just allows for students to have that opportunity to try it out, because you never know if that's the style that works for them. But I also agree that the way that we do school today is so very tied in the industrialization of the country, right? So the history of education in the United States is very much tied to having competent workers for industrial work, right? We wanted to make sure that you could do the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, right?
Yep.
And that made you able to go out into the workforce and be successful. And I think that we need to shift how we see education. It should not necessarily just be about preparing you for the workforce, but preparing you for whatever you want to go out and do with your life. So that means we really need to rethink how we promote each class from grade level to grade level, because not all 9-year-olds learn at the same pace or at the same spot as the other 9-year-olds, and not everybody needs to take pre-calculus, right? Not everybody needs to take classes in the same order. But everybody needs a chance to have that authentic learning. Everybody needs the chance to explore their creativity and their innovation. So we really need to rethink the grading system. We really need to rethink the promotional to grade level system. And I think we really need to reevaluate our focus on math and science, and really diversify that focus to all of the different classes, especially the arts, because the arts are where students really learn to explore their creative side. And the more creative you are, the better you can be at all the other subjects, right? If we expand your ability to think in different directions and in different ways, that just opens you up for more success in any of the other avenues that you choose to pursue.
With you bringing up the arts, do you think that there's possibilities for us to incorporate the arts in some of the required classes? Like I know here at CSA, we've incorporated creative writing. Do you think that maybe with a math class or a science class that we could do the same thing?
My goodness, Gavin, it's like you're listening secretly to some of your facilitators' conversations. We have talked about how amazing it would be for us to have different kinds of integrated courses that are offered. We talked about how cool would it be to do a geometry and graphic design class together, right? Think about geometric design in art. That would be fantastic. throwback to Miss Hossein, who was doing Islamic art, which is all geometric art styles, right? I wouldn't say all, but most of it, a lot of it. Think about how we could do like a Spanish class with art history and explore art through the Spanish culture, right? Because think about how amazing Mexican art is.
Yeah.
Think about how amazing art in Spain is, because we've got the influence of Islam and Judaism and Christianity all mixed together in Spain and the Iberian Peninsula. Think about how great it would be to think about how chemistry could offer an insight into art, right? The crystallization of certain chemicals. Even biology. Think about how, under a microscope, how pretty certain bacteria can look because of their structures. There's so much opportunity for appreciating the aesthetics of everything in our other contents. So if we just had the opportunity, if we had the space, the capacity to offer more artistic influences in our classes, that would be fabulous.
All right, that was a great answer. I think that's about our time here. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with anybody else listening right now?
I just want to express how amazing CSA is, and I think this podcast is just another one of those ways that we can appreciate how CSA gives us space to be ourselves and to take risk and to try big things, and just think about the possibilities and go for it. Consider what you're capable of and how we can provide the space for you to be amazing, because that's what CSA wants.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next week.